Author opinion of Dennis Keen at the History, Geography and Architecture, Culture and Life Manners of Kazakhs in the program Discovering Kazakhstan.
On today's program, the renovated Golden Quarter, the new Kazakh alphabet, ballet at the Abay Theater. Salam, привет, and hello. I'm Dennis Keen, and today on Discovering Kazakhstan, we will be discovering one of the most beautiful and historic neighborhoods in the Kazakh city of Almaty, the Golden Quarter. This area was the center of the city when Almaty was the capital of Kazakhstan during the Soviet period. And more recently, with major renovations and the installation of beautiful pedestrian streets, its status as the place to be in Almaty has never been more certain. Come along as we discover this charming district. Perhaps the most iconic building in the Golden Quarter and the very anchor of the neighborhood is the Abay Opera House. Opera and ballet theaters were built in most big Soviet cities as a way to enlighten the Soviet people. But what I think is neat is that here they developed a kind of Kazakh opera and ballet. So in a Kazakh opera, for example, they would be wearing Kazakh outfits, playing Kazakh instruments, singing in the Kazakh language, but in an operatic style. And it's a really interesting fusion. Most nights of the week you can see some kind of performance, and hopefully this evening we'll get to be able to see a beautiful ballet, the Fountain of Bakhchi-Sarai. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the architecture. It was finished in 1941 and designed in a style called Stalinist Empire style. Stalin liked his buildings big and grand and exquisitely decorated, which is why all over the facade we see these beautiful Kazakh patterns. But it also has something of a European flavor. We have these neoclassical motifs like this bas-relief frieze running along the top, showing different socialist realist figures. You have the soldiers who were the vanguard of the revolution on either side. You have students and workers. You have farm workers who are picking Almaty's favorite apples. And in the middle, the mouthpiece of the revolution, the artist himself, a man playing a dombra and preaching about communism to the people. One of the things that I like about the Golden Quarter is just how many styles of Soviet architecture you can find in one small area. So just across the street from the Stalinist Opera House, you have the modernist Hotel Almaty, radically different with its sleek lines and minimalist design. In fact, these modernist buildings were often so simple that artists would be invited to add a little bit of color and decoration by installing mosaics somewhere on the building. In this case, we can find one of the city's most beloved mosaics, depicting scenes from one of the first Kazakh operas, called Yenlik Quebec. Let's go check it out. What's cool about this mosaic is that it's basically like a Kazakh comic strip, showing different scenes from the opera Yenlik Quebec. In the first scene is boy meets girl, but this is a Kazakh story, so they are on horseback with the boy chasing the girl. In the second scene, we meet the rival, the blue guy. Note that the hero is in red. Here in the middle is the climax, the showdown between red guy and blue guy. Now watch what happens. Blue guy here has a blue sword. The blue sword is broken quite ominously, And here is what is left of the blue guy after the battle, just a puddle of blue blood. In the end, the red guy, our hero, wins, he is victorious, and he gets the girl. This whole story is being told and woven by the storyteller here in the middle. He's playing the dombra, the Kazakh instrument, and making this story come alive all around him in mosaic. Starting at the Abay Opera and Ballet Theater, a street called Panfilov runs for several blocks downhill. But just a few months ago, this street was full of car traffic. Just recently, it has been fully pedestrianized as part of a city campaign to make Almaty and the Golden Quarter more people-friendly. That means that all along Panfilov Street, there are fountains and playgrounds for kids, and even food trucks where you can stop and get a bite to eat. If the Abay Theater was built in the Stalinist Empire style, and the Hotel Almaty was built in a modernist style, then here, just a little bit down Panfilov Street, we can find an example of the very first style of Soviet architecture, what's called constructivism, which, along with Bauhaus and Art Deco, was one of a series of exciting new architectural movements in the first half of the 20th century. The building was built in 1929, the same year that Almaty became the capital, and it was called the House of Government. And while it may not look like much to us these days, for its time, it was radical. Imagine all around cobblestone or dirt streets and donkeys pulling carts. This thing would have looked straight out of the future. As Kazakhstan and Almaty grew, they needed a new house of government. So in 1956, they built this beauty just down the street from the old one. Built in a neoclassical style, it now houses the Kazakh British Technical University. Right in front is a small square that is officially known as Astana Square, but in Almaty known almost universally as Staraya Ploshet, the Old Square. The Old Square has also received a pedestrian-friendly makeover with new pavement and groovy new benches. Across the street from the second House of Government and the Old Square is a nice little park, in the center of which would have once stood a statue of Vladimir Lenin. The Lenin statue came down in the 1990s, and he was replaced with these two ladies, Alia Moldagulova and Manchik Mametova, two young Kazakh girls who joined the Red Army to fight the Nazis during World War II. Alia was a sniper and Manchik was a machine gunner. They died in battle and became war heroes. You can see them marching bravely into battle, bringing behind them peace in the form of cherubs playing with doves. The boundaries of the Golden Quarter aren't precise, but no matter where you put them, it's a big neighborhood. Luckily for us, to help us get from one side to the other, we have the city's subway system, which runs right here along the new Panfilov Street. We've come to the station called Almaty. To find it, just look out for the big M. Здравствуйте. Пожалуйста. Спасибо. I've been in subway systems in other former Soviet countries, in Tbilisi, in Tashkent, and I've noticed that wherever you go, they always give you these little tokens called jeton. So this is our ticket into the subway system. And as the subway is quite minimal, it's just one line, this will get us anywhere that we want to go. When I've been at subway stations in the States, you walk down and there's just a short little staircase down to the platform. But in Almaty, getting down to the platform is a journey all in itself. These stations can be quite deep, simply I think because of the way the city is laid out. Almaty is on a hill, and there are some stations that are near the bottom of the hill and some stations that are towards the top. So in order to build a straight tunnel, some of the stations you have to go down quite deep to actually arrive at the trains. So we'll sit and enjoy this journey on one of the longest escalators in Almaty.
The Almaty station is a deep dive at 30 meters below the ground. But the Abay station, where we're headed, is even deeper, 78 meters below the earth.
The descent into the depths of the earth was absolutely worth it, because at the bottom you are greeted by this beautiful stained glass. The Almaty metro is very much in the mold of the Moscow metro, in that it's not just a utilitarian system for shuffling people around, but it's seen as kind of a gallery of fine art. Here we have a stained glass on the theme of Almaly, which means appley or applesome, because Almaty as a region was always famous for its apple trees.
In the middle of the stained glass, we can see a large apple tree, a reference to the wild apple trees in the Alatau Mountains that Almaty is famous for. But if you look hard, there are layers of meaning. The tree trunk is also shaped like the tree of life, a motif commonly seen in Scythian art. And the bottom of the glass features tulip patterns, a reference to the wild tulips that are also endemic to the area. On the left and the right of the tree, you can see iconic Almaty buildings, like the Koktobay TV Tower or the Hotel Kazakhstan.
Coming down into the lowest level of the station, you find that the platforms themselves are beautifully decorated. Above you have these amazing chandeliers shining bright. Below your feet, polished floors of granite. On the walls, these tile mosaics. Both on the walls and on the floors, you see the same unusual motifs of these spirals. These represent ram's horns, what the Kazakhs call koshkar muyez.
This spiraling horn motif will follow you everywhere in Kazakhstan. It's used in architecture, in fashion, in design. Horned creatures like mountain goats and ibex were considered symbols of masculinity and strength. And living in the mountains close to the heavens, they were a celestial breed.
riding the subway in a place like New York is an assault on the senses. There are people who are singing and dancing, trying to collect money. And Almaty, though, it's a peaceful place. It's quiet. People come here to read a book, they're looking at their phones, catching up on the news, or they're just trying to relax after a long day at work. After a ride of just a few minutes, we have reached the station that is at the very southern edge of the Golden Quarter. It's called Abay Station, and it's named after the father of Kazakh poetry and philosophy, Abay Kunenbayev.
Abay, who also lent his name to the opera house, is called the father of Kazakh poetry and philosophy. Here, around a ceramic likeness of the poet, you can find written in Kazakh his aphorisms, short nuggets of wisdom for which he was famous. The metro ride will take you to Abay Street, which is usually considered the southern border of the old center of the city. From there, it's just a short walk downhill to what I think is the gem of the Golden Quarter, an elegant building called the Academy of Science.
Just like the Abay Opera House, the Academy of Science is built in the Stalinist Empire style, which means it has the same massive scale and the very same golden hue. If you look up at the very top, you can see in Cyrillic is the old Soviet name for the building. They've left that up there along with the hammers and sickles and stars of the Soviet age. If you look on the left and the right, you can see there are these 8 pointed stars, inside of which is the date the building was finished, 1957. The only real addition that they've made in the last 26 years of independence to the building at all is in the very center. It is the national seal of Kazakhstan. There are winged horses called topar, and in the very center, the shangarak, a kind of wooden crown on the top of the Kazakh yurt that has come to symbolize the family, the home, and the nation. When you enter the Academy of Science, you're greeted by the most spectacular space, almost like a circular yurt that has been done in a neoclassical palatial style. But here, instead of the beams of the roof, you have this amazing painted ceiling, and in the middle, instead of that wooden crown, a glistening chandelier. But if there's one thing that makes this space legendary for Almatians, it is the acoustics. Just listen to that echo. I've timed it, and these reverberations will last in this room for as long as 20 seconds, making this easily the craziest echo I've ever heard in my life. Live. Walking through the grand halls of the Academy, you really feel like you're in some kind of extravagant European palace. And I think that this was an intentional ideological choice. After all, the Academy of Science was built during the most optimistic years of the Soviet Union, when the idea was that we're going to build this space, a kind of palace, but not for nobility or for the aristocracy, but a palace for the people, a palace for the workers. And it was built in a kind of European style with these large columns that you would see in neoclassical architecture, but it has a Kazakh twist. If you look up at the top of the columns, you can see on the corners these bumped ridges of ram's horns. a classic sacred symbol for people throughout Central Asia. You'll notice at the top of the grand staircase, keeping guard over the hallowed halls of the Academy, is a bust to Dr. Kanis Satpayev, the founder of the Academy itself. Dr. Satpayev was Kazakhstan's most famous geologist, and I don't think it's an accident that it was a geologist who rose to such a position of prominence. After all, it was geologists who would lead the expeditions to discover coal, uranium, and various rare minerals that would make the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic one of the richest in the Union. These days, the Academy of Science still houses various research institutes, and workers say they never stop being amazed at this one-of-a-kind office building. Just imagine walking to your coworker's office through a space like this, where every surface, both around you and above you, is painted or carved with hypnotic Kazakh ornament. One of Almaty's best-kept tourist secrets is that hidden inside this building are several fine museums. There's a nature museum and an archaeology museum, but today we're going to be visiting the Museum of Rare Books. The museum has 4 separate rooms, each dedicated to one of the alphabets that's been used to write the Kazakh language. So there's a room for Cyrillic, which is used nowadays, but also rooms filled with ancient Turkic runes, and a room filled with Arabic calligraphy, and last, a room dedicated to the Latin alphabet. If you're a foreign tourist who has spent your time in Kazakhstan squinting at signs in Cyrillic, then this room full of books in legible Latin will be a relief. It may be news to some people that from 1929 to 1940, the Kazakh language was written in the Latin alphabet before they went on to shift to Cyrillic, which is used these days. But if there's even better news, it's that by the year 2025, Kazakh will again be written in Latin, which means that Kazakhstan will be spelled once again with a Q. When the leaves start to fall and the courtyards freeze over, scientists can still find refuge here in the verdant winter garden, a kind of indoor greenhouse on the top floor of the Academy. It's especially unusual to come here in the winter. When it's freezing outside, there is snow and ice, but in here, there are canaries singing, tropical plants all around, and a temperature that hovers around a toasty 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. It's worth exploring the Academy of Science both inside and out because this massive building is surrounded by beautiful parks. In the park to the east of the Academy, you can find what is certainly the most famous of Almaty's many fountains, what they call the Eastern Calendar Fountain. It's called the Eastern Calendar Fountain because all around here you can see 12 sculptures, each for one of the symbols of the Eastern calendar. Now you might know the Chinese calendar, so with its year of the monkey and the year of the horse, but this here is actually the Kazakh calendar. So while in the Chinese calendar I might be a dragon, here I'm a snail. As winter draws near and the weather gets colder, most of the fountains in Almaty are turned off so that the pipes don't burst. But for us, that's actually a good thing because it means that with the water drained, we actually have a good look at the mosaic that's at the bottom, designed by the master mosaicist Vladimir Tverdokhlyebov. There, in small tiles called smalty, you can see that he's put the signs of the Western calendar, that is, the zodiac. So you can see a scorpion for Scorpio, a archer for Sagittarius, and a goat for Capricorn. In the center of the fountain, atop a marble obelisk, sits a psychedelic sun, a metal band running around it with the 4 points of the compass and the Greek symbols of the zodiac. Just as in our solar system, here everything rotates around the sun. And this idea of rotations and cycles was central to the Kazakh understanding of time. Kazakhs traditionally thought that your life was not linear but cyclical, and every 12 years you would enter a new phase. When you turn from 12 to 13, for example, it was called your Mushal Zhas, your zodiac age. And this was a monumental milestone in your life when tremendous things could happen.
The cool evening hours are the most romantic time to walk the Golden Quarter. I decided to stroll back down to the Abai Theater, where I could catch a performance from the theater's well-traveled ballet troupe.
Ever since the theater opened in 1941, a night out at the ballet has been an Almaty tradition. Women put on their finest furs and pearls, men assemble their sharpest outfit, and people gather here in the foyer to chat nervously about the world-class entertainment that they are about to witness. The most stunning space in the Abai Theater of Opera and Ballet is here on the second floor, where there's this large hall surrounded by beautiful stained glass with Kazakh ornaments. Along the railings are imitations of golden Kazakh and Scythian jewelry, and up above, glistening chandeliers and the painted blue sky. Even many Almatians who have been to the Abai Theater dozens of times don't know that up on the third floor there is a museum dedicated to the history of Kazakh opera and ballet. Here you can see old costumes that have been remarkably well preserved. You can see original liner notes and opera glasses, and you can see the coolest vintage posters for these classic Kazakh performances. What better way to end a day strolling around Almaty's Golden Quarter than with a performance at this beautiful theater painted in gold, seeing a ballet where the stars should truly shine. This will be my first ballet ever, so I am super excited to get in and see the performance. Thank you for joining us today on Discovering Kazakhstan. Until next time, Salbo, Baka, and goodbye.